For as long as I have been on YouTube, I have been praising the open-world design of Cyberpunk 2077's Night City. And even after 3 years spent analyzing world and level design in dozens of different games, I still find Night City to be my personal favorite open world. But with that said, for as long as I have been on YouTube, my praise of Night City has always been met with a certain type of resistance. Now, this alone is no bad thing. People are free to entertain and express their own preferences and opinions as they relate to art, but occasionally, I hear something that pushes a little further, usually in tune to a phrase like, yes, but Red Dead Redemption 2's world is better. Now, whenever I read something like, yes, but I like GTA 5 more, I say, yeah, that's valid, that makes sense, but when I hear is better, I get confused. I don't think these kinds of open worlds can have better attached to them, at least not in the way that I think these comments are implying, but I've never quite had the words to articulate why. And the longer I've sat on these comments, the more I've thought about open worlds and the games they exist in and the way they work, and every train of thought eventually pulls into the same station. What's even the point of an open world? In my time spent pondering this, I've started to recognize that the answer to this question is more of a layer cake than a definitive proof. There's a lot of reasons why a game might have an open world, and while the reasons I want to talk about are at least a few layers deep, I do still think it's worth talking about one of those surface-level layers. Sometimes a game is an open world because it just has to be for the idea of that game to exist, and this is usually the case with things like MMORPGs. Even the modern king of the MMO realm, old-school RuneScape, is really just an open world because that's kind of what's required for the basic format of this experience to work, and the idea of trying to understand what this game would be without its massive open world kind of breaks my brain in the same way that trying to imagine a new color does. However, this becomes an interesting point to explore for a moment, because I find that this sort of thing gets complicated fast, as it quickly encourages the asking of the question, what even is an open world? Now, this is a fun place to be because it's already dangerously close to the what is anything dimension. Is an open world just a large plane wherein there are no artificial boundaries from which your movement is prohibited? Or is an open world a tool by which a player gets to experience exploration as a key concept of a game's function? Because a large plane without artificial boundaries describes most things like battle royales while excluding things like the Dishonored series, and while something like Arc Raiders still encourages exploration, the individual levels of the Dishonored game still feel more like open worlds to me in regards to their depth and scope, especially in the context of the exploration required to fully explore them. Does an open world game have load zones, or do those count as different levels or sections? Is Kerbal Space Program an open-world game? I mean, you can fly to the moon and back and never see a load screen of any kind, but calling KSP by the same genre as something like Dark Souls or Skyrim feels like a practice in insanity. Is GTFO's Garganta an open world because there's a huge space for you to explore, or is each rundown a unique and individual level? I don't have any answers for you. Boundaries and hypotheticals aside, sometimes a game just has to have an open world, and that's all the game needs to have an open world. Layer 1 complete. Dig a little deeper, however, and you'll usually find one of a few different, very grand reasons for a game to use an open world in its design. I don't think it's going to be a controversial opinion to say that the world of Red Dead Redemption 2 is maybe the best open world design we've ever seen in a game. I mean, for God's sakes, Jacob Geller has, 7 different videos detailing in some way the quality of this world? You do not need me to tell you that this is a well-designed experience, and I want to use RDR2 as a place to explore one of those deeper reasons for an open world to exist. This game wants to be an interactive, and more importantly, immersive, approximation of the wild American West, and you really can't do that if you're not willing to make this an open-world experience, and truly, Rockstar has spared no expense in trying to make this approximation as powerful as possible. Of course, this is still just an approximation, because what the game attempts to do is shrink down essentially half of a continent into one playable area, so naturally some concessions do have to be made in places. The worst of these, however, are actually accounted for by the nature of the setting. I've dogged on Skyrim before for the fact that its ability to represent the world of its game is very poor. When you tell me that Solitude is supposed to be the capital of an entire country, only for that country to have maybe, 80 people who live there? It gives such an intense feeling of disconnection between what a thing is and what I'm supposed to understand it as. Now, this is obviously a limitation of engine and performance, but it feels to me that Red Dead has a bit of a natural cheat code when it comes to this element. This is the frontier west of the late 1800s. Of course a town only has like 80 people. The setting itself naturally excuses and justifies the size and scale of the setting in a way that other games can't. I also love the way that Red Dead 2 begins, because in just the first few opening moments, really before you even gain control of your character, this game establishes both the style of world and the tone of story present within the game. This experience is going to be about constant assault on you by both man and nature, both actively and passively. This is a game with a bounty system and a whole area of the map where you are a wanted man. This is a story about a fight with a rival gang and the bloody, awful hate that comes with that rivalry. This is an experience about bar fights and human nature. It's a game about the world it's set in. Yes, the game establishes a small community for you early. It establishes a nearby town just as early, and therefore it establishes a real sense of, I suppose, home-basedness as a result, but just as much as the game gives you a place to lay your head, it also encourages you to spend as little time there as possible. Fresh roasted game can replace Pearson's stew. There's no need for a bed when you have a bedroll, and you'll never be lonely thanks to all of the company that there's still to be had out here in the wilds. Honestly, Red Dead Redemption 2 feels less like a game to me and more so a story that you get to play that just so happens to be existing in one of the most detailed worlds in media. The mechanical experience is entirely secondary to the design of the world. It somehow feels akin to knowing that Tolkien basically wrote an entire series of novels just to provide backing for his actual passion project, his constructed languages. It means that this game is about recognizing that the world of the game is bigger and more important than you, that it exists around you, and that it will seemingly continue to exist without you. And this is, of course, to say nothing about how pretty this game is. I know I'm remarkably late to this particular conversation, but I also know that if I don't acknowledge the base visual splendor present in this game, people are going to jump me in the streets for it. So there you go. It's a very pretty game. You don't need me to write a novel about it. I'm just here to validate what you already think and like. One of the things that I think and like, though, has nothing to do with the game's visuals. This game wants you to experience the totality of its world more than maybe anything else. And that's not just the desire of the developers that you look around a bunch, but rather, this game is absolutely crammed with little adventures designed to take you everywhere in the world and get you looking under every possible rock just in case. In just the first few hours of playtime alone, I was introduced to stagecoach robberies, a bounty system, a serial killer to pursue, plants to collect, dinosaur bones to catalog, horses to tame, animals to hunt, all with individual purpose and value to the greater gameplay experience. It's in this way, I think, that Red Dead Redemption 2 leans the hardest into its desire to create the most immersive world possible, not just by making a pretty game, but by encouraging you to see every bit of it. I don't know if I'll be able to find the original comment, but I recall once receiving the idea that GTA 5's Los Santos is a better open world than Cyberpunk 2077's Night City because you can play golf in it. Now, this is true, you can play golf in Los Santos and not in Night City, but better is a deeply confused term here. You see, GTA 5 as a game has a core design ethos of wanting you as the player to be able to experience, functionally, any amount of power possible over an otherwise normal world. You should be able to look at Los Santos and see any town or city in America, and at the same time, I should be able to jump a car off a hill at 130 miles an hour and crash into a military base. I should be able to steal a jet, should I, as the player, be quick enough to do so, and I should be able to fly that jet, regardless of any abilities or knowledge required on how to do so. I should be able to explode cars on the highway. I should be able to gamble at a casino. I should be able to rob a gas station. I should be able to get into a gunfight with the police. I should be able to die and be merely inconvenienced by it. And, yes, I should be able to play golf. The tone and idea that exists as the driving force behind GTA 5 as a game is that you, as the player, are handed total control and power over a world that looks and feels as close to our own as possible, and that means that, yeah, being able to play golf is a good thing here. It is an important thing. Now, do I think that most people who play GTA 5 log in after school or work for the purpose of playing golf? Abso-fucking-lutely not, no, and I would not believe anyone who says they do. But giving that option to the player is an important part of creating and enforcing the idea of what GTA 5 wants to be. It's the little things like being able to play golf, going to the therapy sessions as Michael, taking the time to play with Chop the dog, or doing the hangouts with Jimmy that all together sell this illusion of this being an accurate representation of the normal world, even if you don't participate in those activities. Just the option of them existing quietly enforces this. It's like, okay, you know the movie The Witch? Okay, good. Now, do you know the director's commentary for the movie The Witch? Okay, well, neither did I until I found this great video by Nick Robinson breaking down how funny that commentary is, because it's largely just the director, Robert Eggers, tearing into his own movie for things like, the goats are incorrect, this horse has the wrong genitals, the firewood is too modern. And most people agree that he's being too hard on himself and his art, and that he's being a bit of a perfectionist. But Robert actually has a very informed opinion on why he feels the way he feels. The basic idea behind it is that even if the viewer isn't consciously aware of what types of buttons would have been on clothes during this time period, or what the floorboards of this house should look like to be period accurate, these things being incorrect will still subconsciously take the viewer out of immersion when watching the film, and The Witch works best when the viewer surrenders total immersion into the movie. Now, while I'm not trying to argue that GTA 5 is as artful as The Witch, I do think it's essentially playing with the same rule set. The point of this game, really the point of this world, is that it wants me to feel total power over a world as recognizable as my own as possible. For this purpose, things like golf are very important to have in the world. The whole point of this open world is to mirror the real world, and yes, I only played one hole because I got bored because I was playing golf, but the core design idea that this is a normal, everyday, everywhere in America world wherein I am given wild and total power had been perfectly established just for that one hole of golf alone. What can I say about Night City that I haven't said before? Just as Red Dead Redemption 2 seems to have played Muse for Jacob Geller, so too did Night City, and the game it's built in totally defined the early days of my time on this platform. I was naive back then, I think, and felt that my favorite thing needed defending. These days, though, I think I can recognize that the value of my favorite open world stands largely to its own defense, though my time spent admiring it has helped me understand the design of its world and what it wants to be. Like all good cyberpunk stories, 2077, and thereby its world, exists for a simple reason. This world is a warning. This is a story of hyper-capitalist consumption, of unrestrained corporate overreach, of human desperation in a system that views us as meat. This is a story where there can be no happy endings. This is a story about the very real horrors of what could come to be. How do you represent a thing like that? How do you represent that level of self-hatred towards mankind? How do you represent the loneliness and horror that comes from your entire life being commodified? How do you represent a world wherein every day just walking down the street puts your life at risk, and at the same time you've long accepted and gone numb to that risk? Well, it's not by letting you play golf or filling the world with cute novelties. From the lowest sewer to the tallest tower, this is a vile and rotten world. Once upon a time, it allowed for vile things to be done, but it has since outgrown that allowance and now requires that those vile things be done, at least if you intend to survive this world. And as such, there is no changing Night City. There is no political gambit that could shift this world. There is no act of extremism that could alter its bedrock. There is nothing a person can do to escape the reality of Night City, at least not while remaining in its shadow. The point of this open world is to represent human desperation and the disregard for our common and shared humanity. Homeless camps the sizes of parking garages, graveyards where you can't even fit a body, and privately owned militaries are the standard and the norm in this world. And what recreation there is designed to reinforce the idea of humans as commodities. Places like clouds exist for the specific purpose of turning human beings into automated carnal experiences, and brain dances common at bars such as Lizzie's exist to allow people to not even experience pleasure for themselves, but rather to simply live in the fine-tuned and carefully adjusted experiences of others, and whether this be carnal as well, or something far more sinister, or even just innocent escapism, it's all about having a few precious moments where you don't have to be who you are, where you are right now. As a result of all of this, Night City feels alive in a way that I find to be deeply unique to Night City. No, it does not feel like every NPC here is alive with a full and intricate life, and no, I cannot play golf in Night City. But in the quiet moments of the game, I can almost feel the world itself breathing under my feet, like a monster lurking below, knives out, ready to feast. Night City feels not just alive, but like it hates, and that it loves to hate. And all of this, of course, is to repeat myself as little as possible about the way the game uses its visual beauty and its splendor to support these tones and ideas. A world this bright uses its light as a lure, yes, to draw you in, to make you believe that nothing too dark could ever exist in a world that shines so intensely, but the strongest lights often cast the deepest shadows. Yes, I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is good for having a world where you can do camp chores or go to a saloon. Yes, I think that GTA 5 is good for having a world where you can go to a casino or play golf. But the fact that you cannot play golf in Night City is not a flaw of Night City. Yes, I do think that it's a flaw that outside of a few carefully crafted core missions, you can't actually experience a brain dance or ever return to clouds, but the fact that, at least within Night City, you don't have a camp full of friends who care about you. You don't have a companion who makes fresh cooked stew every day, that you don't get to enjoy being here, that you don't get to experience power here, is not a shortcoming of design, but rather a deeply informative choice to represent what this world is. Night City is a warning. Red Dead 2, GTA 5, Cyberpunk, I don't think any of these games' worlds can be definitively titled as better, because I've walked away from my time in all of them with the distinct feeling that each world is trying to do a fundamentally different thing. They all want to be something that the others aren't, and as such, they all present themselves for a different purpose. Red Dead is an exploration of visual splendor and burnt-out graphics cards. GTA 5 is an experience of wild enablement and fulfillment of intrusive thoughts, and Cyberpunk is a classical warning of a world that could come to be. These worlds are not the same, and as such, cannot be compared in any sort of direct way, at least not in a way that's definitively meaningful. And that means that better, as a signifier between them all, is a worthless term. You know, I feel like it's been a really long time since I just sat down and talked about open world game design. I've honestly missed it a lot, it turns out. I don't really know when I'll get to do this again, but I'm happy I got to do it now. Hopefully I've treaded these waters carefully enough to not needlessly upset the fans of any one particularly game, but if I have made you angry by insinuating that your favorite thing isn't objectively the best thing in the world, I want you to know that truly, I do not care. And speaking of difficult segues, this video is made with support from the best people in the world, those of course being my funders over on Patreon, including the finest of them all, Jordan, Ivan Thanosi, DeviceMD, T.Log, ComicKiller99, and Gonzo. If you like what you see here, then for just $1 a month you can help make it all possible. Either way, thank you for being here. Have a nice time, Zone.